HTC has launched the Hero, an Android-powered smartphone, but without Google's backing or integration, rather bizarrely. The key change here is the new contract-centric Sense interface. Think of it being the next generation of HTC's TouchFlow. There's also a 5-megapixel camera, GPS, and the display is half VGA. Oh yes, and the whole thing is supposedly coated in Teflon. One significant piece of related news is that the Hero is the first Android phone to ship with support for the full version of Adobe Flash, although other mobile platforms will follow in the next few months. You'll know that Nokia has been using micro USB for its phone data connections for 2 years now and for its charging connections in the most recent devices. Back in February, the GSM Association and various handset manufacturers started discussions for an agreement on what they can use in the future. It has now been agreed with 10 companies, including Nokia, Sony Ericsson, Motorola, Apple, LG, RIM and Samsung, all agreeing on standardizing on micro USB for charging, and at last should stop ill-informed reviewers bitching about Nokia using something, quote, non-standard. Talking of Nokia, many of its smartphones have had a firmware update in the last month, notably the new N97, the popular E71 and the unloved wannabe flagship, the N96. As ever, updating to the latest firmware is highly recommended. Most recent devices can update painlessly over the air. Just type in *#0000# on the standby screen to bring up Device Manager and then use Options, check for updates. For older devices, plug your phone into Nokia Software Update on a Windows PC, but note that you'll need to back up beforehand and restore data afterwards. It's official. After months of beta testing, Nokia has released Ovi Maps, used to be Nokia Maps, 3.0 to the world for most S60 3rd edition, Feature Pack 1, Feature Pack 2 and S60 5th edition phones. The download is currently a 20 megabyte Windows installer, so you do have to own a PC. But there's a little note on the Ovi Maps download page saying Mac support is coming soon. I should hope so.
Apple's iPhone 3.0 update brings with it many additions and improvements, but this section will focus mainly on things that are unique to the 3GS. The 3GS has an ARM Cortex A8 processor running at 600 MHz and a graphics co-processor, the PowerVR SGX 256 megabytes of RAM, 3.1 megapixel camera with autofocus, VGA video capture at a rock-solid 30 frames per second in decent lighting conditions, and a digital compass. As you can see here, we're going to demonstrate the speed of web browsing. I'm going to do this in comparison to a MacBook Pro, pretty much the fastest MacBook Pro that Apple sell. Okay, we're going to click here on this link, and we've done so on the MacBook Pro. As you can see, the 3GS started the page rendering first. The MacBook Pro obviously finished quicker, but the 3GS was only slightly behind. How about application launching? Very fast. We're going to launch here a game by game loft. Literally just a few seconds, and this game would usually take about 25 seconds to launch. It took no more than 5 or 6 seconds to launch.
Great shot.
We'll delve into the graphic improvements a bit further on in this small review. As you can see here, everything's very fluid and detailed. Let's look at the digital compass. Apple include a compass application which is very basic but does exactly what you'd expect. It's very rapid, works well. But of course the magnetometer, the digital compass, can be used in other applications as well, in this case Google Maps. As you can see, it's very fluid and precise. And I'd like to demonstrate the graphical power of the iPhone 3GS, of course using the extra power afforded to it by the PowerVR SGX processor, graphics processor. Rumours have it that it's much faster than the previous processor, the MBX I think it was called, and programs such as Google Earth really demonstrate that polygon pushing performance. It's just so much smoother on the 3GS, a much more pleasant experience. Let's demonstrate this now by showing some of the polygon rendered landscapes that Google Earth has to offer. We'll go to Fox Glacier in New Zealand, and we'll zoom down almost to ground level and see just how fast the scene is rendered. got no actual data, but it really does feel like it's running at around between 20 and 35 frames per second, with great detail and good responsiveness. It really is impressive. As far as I know, there aren't any applications that have been specifically written for the 3GS in terms of the new graphical power of this device, but of course games and applications that have been written for the previous devices all run that much bit faster. Here's a quick clip from Sims 3 on the iPhone, which was a bit jerky on the old hardware but very smooth on the new hardware, and an application here just showing some very smooth frame rates on the iPhone 3GS. And here's the startup sequence from my favourite game on the iPhone at the moment, Firemint's Real Racing, which runs much better on the 3GS. I mean, it was fine, to be honest, on the old hardware, but it's really quite slick on the 3GS. Another new feature of the iPhone 3GS, which some may find useful, is voice control. Play album Continuum.
Playing album Continuum.
To be honest, it works quite well. It could be useful for car control or hands-free control. Shuffle.
Shuffle on.
Now we move over to what is, in my opinion, the killer feature, the improved camera, with the excellent camera interface, which is just so fast and quite precise. The camera, of course, is increased in resolution to 3 megapixels, but it also has autofocus and video capture. Not just any video capture. In my opinion, this video capture is better than pretty much any N-series device I've used. It's a rock-solid 30 frames per second in decent lighting conditions, and it uses H.264 for the compression, which gives plenty of detail at a good compression rate. Here's a sample video from the 3GS. Good color accuracy, plenty of detail. Playback on the iPhone 3GS is really smooth, and you can scrub through the video and trim it, and upload it to YouTube, to MobileMe, to email it to yourself, to your friends. It just works really well. I've got really no complaints. So I'm just going to trim this small section of video. It's very quick at doing any kind of trimming or recompressing. I'm going to send it to YouTube. Look, it's compressing the video very quickly. Just enter the title, the description, some tags, the category, and send, and it's publishing to YouTube. And it's quicker than you would expect, much quicker than I was expecting anyway, and it does it all in the background. Switching between video and photo capture is quick. As you can see here, about 2 seconds, I suppose, if that. So here's a sample video from my Canon HV10 compared to the Apple iPhone 3GS. Quite similar, much wider angle, mind you, on the lens of the iPhone 3GS. Here's another macro video which I took with the auto-focusing lens on the new iPhone. Lots of detail, great definition, especially in that red, which is always hard to compress. And finally, I'll leave you with a small gallery of some photos taken with the new iPhone.
Thanks, James. That was a great look at what's new in the iPhone 3GS, but in the interests of aiding your phone choice, it's also worth highlighting a few things that Apple still haven't addressed. For starters, there are still no background third-party applications, so that means waiting for games to start up again after each interruption, though the extra speed does indeed help here. It also means no background streaming radio, and it means no background social media applications, keeping track of your life. This last's supposed to be addressed by Apple's new push notification service, wherein Apple's servers notify you over the air when one of your applications has new data available for it. Maybe I'm a skeptic, but this still seems like a huge pledge to me. Time will tell. Although fine for most web browsing, the iPhone Safari still doesn't have Flash, so there are gaping holes in some websites where Flash videos and animation should be. What else? The camera still doesn't have LED flash, the battery life still rather poor, and there's no user-accessible file system, something which is proving really restricting to the new breed of office and business applications now appearing. But credit where credit's due, as James has pointed out, the iPhone 3GS is a big improvement on its predecessor, and for the naysayers and iPhone haters out there, you've got to admit that Apple are on something of a roll with this device.